Good afternoon. My name is Charles Lehman. I'm speaking to you from Madison, Alabama. I am working on my PhD in history at Liberty University and conducting research on my dissertation topic. Being a resident of Alabama, I have a special interest in how Alabamian Confederate soldiers coped with adversity and trauma in the American Civil War. So I'd like to take a few minutes to discuss the historiography related to my topic. There are three main books that give attention to the activities of the Civil War in the state of Alabama. The first is a 2017 book by Robert C. Jones titled Alabama and the Civil War. Jones focuses mainly on the characters from Alabama who participated in the Civil War. Another 2017 book by John Sledge is called These Rugged Days. As the cover illustrates, Sledge focuses on the fighting that took place in the state of Alabama. And then there's a 2016 book by Christopher McClellan titled Civil War Alabama. McClellan gives attention to characters, to battles, but most significantly focuses on causes and outcomes and gives attention to Union sentiment that existed in the state of Alabama. Narrowing my focus, I would like to share 5 books that detail specific units. I'll name the 5 books and then share a couple things that they share in common. The first is a 2017 book called The 48th Alabama by Joshua Price. The next book is a 2015 book, The Fighting 15th Alabama Infantry by James Faust. And then we have a 2009 book by Eileen and Wilbert Thompson called The 17th Alabama Infantry. A 2008 book by Linda Green is First for the Duration. This is the story of the 8th Alabama. And then finally, I share a 2000 book by Morris M. Penny and J. Gary Lane titled Struggle for the Round Top, Law's Alabama Brigade at Gettysburg. One thing that these books share in common is that the authors had ancestors who served in the units that they are writing about. So there is this personal connection that the authors have. The second thing that these books have in common is that there is a focus on rosters, organizational makeup, a list of the battles that the units participated in, and biographical details of certain soldiers. With that, there is, for the most part, a lack of narrative. In other words, there's not a lot of description on what took place before, during, and after the battles, with the exception of Struggle for the Round Tops, which does provide a very good narrative on Law's Alabama Brigade at Gettysburg. Now, all the books that I've mentioned so far, the first 3 and then those 5, one thing they have in common is there is little mention of how Alabamian Confederate soldiers coped with adversity and trauma in the Civil War. Now, there is one book that mentions it briefly. That's a 2013 book called The Yellow Hammer War, and there's a chapter in here by Christopher Tetters. It's titled Fighting for the Cause, an examination of the motivation of Alabama's Confederate soldiers from a class perspective. And so the author does look a little bit about how Alabamian soldiers coped, but the main aim is to look at the motivations and how they differed depending upon what class the soldier fell in. Now, on a broad perspective, there are several writings that focus on how soldiers dealt with adversity and stress, both North and South, in a very general way. I'd like to mention 5 books. One is a 2018 book by Peter S. Carmichael titled The War for the Common Soldier. A 2010 book, Die Hard Rebels by Jason Phillips, focusing on the South. A 2010 book by George C. Rabel, God's Almost Chosen People. A 2005 book by Kent T. Dollar titled Soldiers of the Cross. And then finally a book by Stephen E. Woodworth, 2001, While God is Marching On. Now let me say that all of those books are well written. They're well researched. In fact, they're by really good scholars. But they give a very broad perspective. In other words, Alabama is not at the center of the study. Therefore, there remains a gap. There's a lot of research that still needs to be done on how Alabamian soldiers coped with adversity and trauma in the American Civil War. So my aim as I move forward in the weeks and months ahead is to look at letters and diaries and memoirs and histories and newspapers and other historical manuscripts that enlighten me, give me understanding into how Alabamian soldiers coped with adversity and trauma in war. And I hope to uncover the importance of faith, the importance of family, the importance of this hope for a future, and see how all that is tied into how they cope with the adversities of life and how that contributed to what they did to support the Confederate cause. Thank you very much.